Well, shalom. Today is April the 5th. We are talking about Parashat Shemini back after a little break from Pesach. Parashat Shemini is, as I like to say, an amazing Parsha. But it really is, I want to say it's one of the only stories, or it discloses a moment that is really one of the only stories in the entire book of Leviticus, which tells you that the book of Leviticus, as we've gotten to know it, is not a book of stories as much as it is a book of laws, and that we have to really, really put the magnifying glass to the laws to really disclose some of the stories. And so we tried to do that in our last class with the whole presentation of the different offerings, which I hope was something that stayed with you all. The idea that the presentation of an olah, a sacrificial offering, the burnt offering, is actually an attempt to imitate the Mount Sinai and the people. I thought it was a fascinating approach, and other things. The v'samach yadcha, the placing of a hand, which also tells a story. Well, here we have an actual story because there is an actual event, and there are actual characters, and there's an actual theme to the story, which we could loosely say is the theme of tragedy. Something that is not unfamiliar to all of us, either in literature or, unfortunately, also in life. And we're going to ask several questions related to this story, and I'll make reference to we'll go into it in depth in a second. The story, in the broadest outlines possible, is that they are initiating the sanctuary or inaugurating the sanctuary, and the priests have had 7 days of inaugural preparations, and it's the 8th day, the culmination day, and that day culminates in tragedy, or it includes tragedy, where by the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, bring, quote, a strange fire, unquote, and are incinerated when they bring that strange fire. And that entails a set of reactions, both from Moses and Aaron, that require a kind of reparation or some kind of remediation to what was supposed to not happen. And so it's a very troubling moment, for lots of reasons, because there are lots of different puzzles here for us. I want to go into the text itself, give you some of the text, and then, as usual, bring some of analogies from visual media that were just accessible to me by my imagination. Ask some really important questions that I found myself asking, and therefore I have this idea that if I'm pulled in a certain direction, there must be something pulling me. And of course, because no Torah text can be without its hockey analogy, we will end with that also. Okay, so with no further ado, here is the initiation ceremony. Okay, the initiation and the catastrophe. The Nadav and Avihu incident. What is the story? What happened? What did they do? Why did they get incinerated? What happened between Moses and Aaron, and why? Why does Moses get so angry? What is encoded in Aaron's response? So here is the text of the ceremony. I'm gonna just zoom through this. This is an entire chapter, and then the event happens at the beginning of chapter 10. But I want to kind of do this in order to indicate, how everything is kind of building up to this crescendo. So here it is. On the 8th day, Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, take a calf of the herd for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering without blemish, and bring them before the Lord. And speak to the Israelites, saying, take a he-goat for a sin offering, a calf and a lamb, yearlings without blemish for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for an offering of well-being to sacrifice before the Lord, and a meal offering with oil mixed in. For today the Lord will appear to you. So basically, I'm sorry to stop here. It's like you got to take the entire menu the entire column A, the entire column B of all the different kinds of sacrifices, and bring them all up. And in a way, we're getting the point here. It's the initiation, so they got to give a kind of the first of each one, I think. Okay, verse 5. They brought to the front of the tent of meeting the things that Moses has commanded, and the whole community came forward and stood before the Lord. Okay, it's a great moment. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded that you do, that the presence of the Lord may appear to you." And Moses said to Aaron, "Come forward to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering and your burnt offering, making expiation for yourself and for the people, and sacrifice the people's offering and make expiation for them as the Lord had commanded." So it's scripted here, but it gives me the sense that this is going according to a seder. Verse 8, Aaron came forward to the altar and slaughtered his calf of the sin offering. Solemn. Aaron's sons brought the blood to him. Most important element of an offering is bringing the blood. He dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar. That is, we have said already, putting blood on the altar is indexing the altar. It's designating it. And he poured out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. Also really important. The fat, which we saw, the kidneys, the protuberance of the liver from the sin offering, he turned it to smoke on the altar, imitating the smoke of the mountain, as the Lord had commanded Moses. 11, and the flesh and the skin were consumed in fire outside the camp. I don't want to talk about that. Then he slaughtered the burnt offering. Aaron's sons passed the blood to him, and he dashed it against all sides of the altar. They passed the burnt offering to him in sections, as well as the head, and he turned it into smoke on the altar. He washed the entrails and the legs and turned them into smoke on the altar with the burnt offering. Next, he brought forward the people's offering. He took the goat for the people's sin offering and slaughtered it and presented it as a sin offering like the previous one. He brought forward the burnt offering and sacrificed it according to regulation. He then brought forward the meal offering and, taking a handful of it, turned it into smoke on the altar. In addition to the burnt offering of the morning, he slaughtered the ox and the ram, the people's sacrifice of well-being. Aaron's sons passed the blood to him, which he dashed against every side of the altar, and the fat parts of the ox and the ram, the broad tail, the covering, the kidneys, the protuberances of the livers. They laid these fat parts over the breasts, and Aaron turned the fat parts into smoke on the altar and elevated the breast and the right thighs as an elevation offering before the Lord, as Moses had commanded. Aaron lifted his hands toward the people and blessed them, and he stepped down after offering the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the offering of well-being. Moses and Aaron then went inside the tent of meeting. When they come out, they blessed the people, and the presence of the Lord appeared to all the people. Fire came forth from before the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat parts on the altar. And the people saw and shouted and fell on their faces. I'm going to stop here for a second, okay? And I'm just going to try and jump into the world, okay? And remove all the preconceptions that I have of sacrifices and all of the visual and of course the instinctual reactions that I may have upon seeing severed heads of animals, blood, and all the other things that are so unseemly to I think, I'm not sure a pre-modern sensibility, but certainly to a modern sensibility. We're just not around this stuff a lot. We don't spend a lot of time in slaughterhouses. We don't spend a lot of time doing it. I have to say, since last class when we studied these things, and I brought you all the gory pictures of slaughtered animals. So I've been watching this guy, the Wilderness Cooks. Remember the guy who fries up the fat of the tail, the fat tail. I'm so fascinated by this because I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, this is a primitive way of cooking. And he literally lives on the land. He lives so close to the land, notwithstanding the fact that someone's got an iPhone taking videos of him, and he's making tons of money from showing it. But he is literally showing you how to cook as if you were a Bedouin, even though he lives in Azerbaijan, and I get the sense it's absolutely fascinating to me, and I'm not grossed out by it in the sense that it's all about meat and bones and smashing, and I totally understand things more by watching that. It's just such a natural part of life. I mean, and this is, I was saying to some people, it's imaginable that 100 years ago, 3 generations ago, this is how our great grandparents lived. They lived very close to these things. The only thing that they probably didn't do was shech the animal themselves, but even my grandmother would come home and take the animal and take the skin off and do all this stuff with the animal. And they sometimes even koshered the animal themselves, and they trimmed it, they butchered it. They knew how to cut the animal, or they knew how to tell the butcher himself, no, I want this piece, no, I want that. And they knew exactly that. We wouldn't have a clue. None of us would have a clue as to how to do that. Okay. So the point is that these moments are rich with symbolism. They're rich with emotion. The people are standing at the opening of the whole sanctuary. The slaughtering is going on. It's been 7 days of anticipation. The priests, Aaron and his sons, have been basically cooped up in the sanctuary for 7 days. They haven't moved. They haven't budged from there. Who knows how they managed to deal with their own lives, which is a source of speculation among certain kinds of commentators. We'll leave that aside. And here is this great moment. And Moses tells them to do all this. They take the menu of all the sacrifice. They're slaughtering, they're sprinkling the blood. We, of course, know that the putting of blood on the altars means it is being designated now as holy. It is now operational. The blood on the horns of the altar make it operational, and the blood at the base of the altar make it even more operational. And just to remind us, the altar is not like a table. It's not like a small bridge table, okay? The altar is a big structure. The altar is about 5 feet high, 4.5 feet high, and it's a 7.5, 8 foot by 8 foot square, okay? Some of you have rooms in your home that are 8 feet by 8 feet. It's that big, and it would be that high, almost, as high as a person. And you have to, it's like, it's an industrial size stove, and even bigger than an industrial size. It's a rather large apparatus, and it has to be a large apparatus. I'm not even sure that there's a grill on it, okay? But for sure, there's a base, and the base inside it is wood, and the wood is being burnt down into coals. This is what I learned from watching this guy, which it never occurred to me, and I have to consult some of you who do barbecues more regularly. You don't barbecue over the full flame, right? You barbecue, you have to let the flame settle. So if you're using charcoal, there's no way you put the steak on the grill as the flames are high. You let the flames come down, and the coals are red, which is exactly how this guy in the wilderness does it, and it's exactly how it is taking place in the sanctuary, because you want to get a more or less a controlled flame to do what you need to do if it's cooking or if it's burning things. If you're completely burning things, I guess you want a wilder flame. But if you're cooking the offering or roasting it, you want to have a much more controlled flame. You don't want to just give people, charred meat to eat. They won't eat it, right? I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. Marlene, you were nodding there. Go ahead if you want.
Yes, since you put the fat on first, when the flames hit the fat, that sends it up into smoke. As the fire dies down into coals and you have a consistent heat, then you can roast the meat.
That's the point. So coals are really important. So you have basically the altar is a bed of coals, and they're bringing in, lamb after lamb after lamb, or animal after animal after animal, and some of it is being completely burned, some of it is being eaten, etc., etc. And so here you could see, this, and in this moment, meat consumption only happens by consecrating the meat. We don't have unconsecrated meat consumption until well into the book of Deuteronomy. Anytime anybody eats meat, wants to eat meat, it has to happen at a sacred spot. That's something that we miss often when we don't understand this when we're reading the Bible. We project our contemporary or our post, biblical culinary habits onto the Bible. If you wanted to eat meat, you had to go to the sacred spot, which meant that you went, fairly regularly or at least once a year. And the rest of the time, you really didn't eat meat. But they realized that of course, people wanted to eat meat. And so therefore, they allowed people to eat meat in their regular habitations. That's what Deuteronomy sets up. Okay, so now we have this great moment, the climactic moment, the moment of dedication. It's, one wave after sacrifice. It's just an amazing moment. And now here's what happens. Now Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and we'll talk about the word fire because esh here is not fire like it's coals. They put coals, and the Bible calls coals esh. We use the word gachelet today to refer to ember and coal, but the Bible here in Leviticus is referring to esh, the coals. They brought it, the fire, the coals, and laid incense on it. And they offered before the Lord alien fire, esh zara, which he had not enjoined upon them. The fire came forth from the Lord and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord meant when he said, though through those near to me, I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people. And Aaron was silent. Vayidom Aharon. Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, sons of Uziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said to them, come forward and carry your kinsmen away from the front of the sanctuary to a place outside the camp. They came forward and carried them out of the camp by their tunics, as Moses had ordered. And Moses said to Aaron and to his sons Eleazar and Itamar, do not bare your heads, do not rend your clothes, lest you die and anger strike the whole community. But your kinsmen, all the house of Israel, shall bewail the burning that the Lord has wrought. And so do not go outside the entrance of the tent of meeting, lest you die. For the Lord's anointing oil is upon you. And they did as Moses had bidden. Okay, so that is the catastrophe. I'll go back to the verse again. The catastrophe is, they take a fire pan, an incense pan, which probably looked a little like a shovel. They put a coal on it. They put incense on it. And they brought this esh zara, strange fire, foreign fire, asher lotziva, and maybe the trope here is indicative of something. We don't necessarily make commentary on the Masoretic marks, but the fact that it's there only begs you to look at it. The fire came out from God and ate them. And this is the same fire that came out before the people. So when they lay out all the sacrifices, the fire comes out and lights up the thing. Now, this is really an important point. This is a point that is made by Jacob Milgram in his commentary, and I got my friends excited about this point when I shared this with them. I said, this is basically the ignition of the sacrifices. It's the equivalent of taking your Bic lighter and, the fuel is all there and you just you send the spark to the fuel and the whole thing ignites, okay? And the point is that the original ignition is to be left going and to be maintained throughout the life of the altar. They had to maintain that the fire would not go out, because every single sacrifice that would be destined to be sacrificed would be kindled, would be sacrificed by the original flame. And that it's an amazing thing. It's like, this is the ground zero moment. This is the ignition moment, right? You know, remember watching the liftoff of the Saturn V rocket, you know, back in the, whenever it was, the 70s? We have ignition. That was the moment, you know, the countdown is going on, 5, we have ignition, and then liftoff, right? And this is exactly, I should have put that as a video. This is exactly what's going on here. We have ignition, we have liftoff, except we have catastrophe. The ignition includes the fact that these two guys, I will leave my characterization of them to the end, but you can even tell what I think of them by that. These two guys are incinerated in the same ignition moment, okay? I'm not gonna ask why at this second. I know anybody, just a little, I'll open up for comments if you have, and then we'll go into my examples of things going awry when you have celebratory events. Any comments? Until now, go ahead, Marlene.
Well, it's kind of like the Olympic flame as well.
Indeed.
It just gets carried.
So it's a perfect example. And if you could think of other examples, I mean, I'm almost collecting these examples of, you know, can you imagine, do you remember the Atlanta Olympics where so it was Muhammad Ali was,
Muhammad Ali.
so it was a surprise. They did not disclose who was lighting the Olympic flame until the very, very end, okay? And if you watched it, and I'm sure it's on the video, it's a very emotional moment. That's the climax of the whole dedicated initiation moment. The athletes are paraded in, everybody, you know, the anthems or flags, whatever, it's full of pageantry. And then the runner comes in, and the flame, according to the Olympic tradition, is ignited in Greece, right, in Olympia. And they take it all over the world, right? And it goes throughout the world. How it stays on an airplane, I don't know, right? But they take it all over the world, and it comes to the destination. It comes to the destination. I'm sorry.
That's his daughter.
No, it's not a daughter. Comes to the destination, and and then the final person, and it's like an aliyah. It's the honored aliyah to the, and in this case, it was Muhammad Ali, and you saw him shaking, right? Because he had terrible Parkinson's because of what's the name of when you get punched so much in the head? Chronic encephalitis, chronic brain injury, and he was shaking and shaking and shaking, and I remember watching and feeling, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. You know, that would be tragic. And every single commentator said, you know, he held it up. He held it up. He did, you know, and what a great moment it was. And it truly was a great moment when he did this. But there are plenty of other examples of things that go wrong when you have great moments. And we will now go to some of them presently. Here we go. So this is I'll go back to the story of here, top wedding disasters.
The weddings we're about to see certainly didn't go as planned. Today's video, narrated by Greg, is on the top 5 wedding disasters. Number 5, a fiery wedding. A Canadian couple was getting ready to get married at a luxury resort in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. They were moments away from their ceremony.
So she
up her dress
the place that they're getting married goes on fire. And there's another one.
Throwing the bouquet.
There's another one where they did something really interesting. They wanted to throw the bouquet from a plane, and the bouquet went into the engine. Okay. And then here's this one. They wanted to zip line into their wedding.
The bride took off slowly, and it seems like it was going well until the groom started catching up with her. Something made him glide down the zip line at double the speed that she was moving at, and he was panicking.
Boom.
Right before he to the ground.
Okay. And then there are sorts of food fights and all sorts of fires and things breaking out. And I mean, there are so many of these. I mean, it's a whole genre of things that go wrong. I have never known about the next thing. Okay, there is something called the gender reveal party. You may have seen this. Okay, another gender reveal party ended in disaster in Michigan. I'm sorry, in Michigan. In Michigan, last week, a 26-year-old man was killed when a small cannon device that was being used for a gender reveal at a baby shower exploded, spraying metal shrapnel that struck the man. He was rushed to the hospital where he later died of his injuries. According to the AP, 3 parked cars in the garage where the baby shower was being held were also struck by shrapnel. This tragedy is just the latest example of gender reveals going horribly wrong. What were once goofy gender reductionist additions to baby showers have become increasingly dangerous and destructive displays involving guns, homemade explosive devices, and in some cases, wild animals. Take the 2017 gender reveal in Arizona, in which a Border Patrol agent named Dennis Dickey decided to reveal the sex of his baby by shooting a target that was filled with either pink or blue powder, as well as an explosive substance called tannerite to really make the reveal pop. Dickey shot at the target in a field of dry brush. The explosion ended up sparking a 47,000-acre sawmill wildfire, which would result in $8 million of damages. The next year, the family in Louisiana would go viral for revealing the sex of their child with the help of a live alligator. And in 2019, a 56-year-old Iowa woman died when a homemade explosive knife meant to spray either pink or blue powder exploded like a pipe bomb, spraying metal pieces that struck the woman in the head, killing her instantly. So I have to stop here and go like, what?
Yeah, really.
What,
terrible.
What is this? And so I have no, I read about this just a couple of weeks ago, and I thought like, so what's going on here? What's going on? Evidently, in a certain kind of mindset, this is now important. It's important to, have a moment where if you know the sex of your, forthcoming child, you reveal the sex of your child, right, at a gender reveal party. It's like a shower, baby shower, and it's the baby shower taken to the next level, right? Where you're making a big deal. Now, drum roll please, we're going to have a boy or we're going to have a girl, okay? The fact that these have become so wild tells you something about, the mindset of people, that they just want to outdo the next person, and they have an instinct. The same is true, by the way, with shtick at weddings, the coming in on a zip line and the airborne flyover throw of the bouquet. I have encountered more than one wedding in my career as an officiant where brides and grooms have wanted to do something that's unique or something that's, to them, it's usually something that's very banal, like the groom wearing sneakers, that seems to be in vogue now among a certain set, the hipster sect, where the kids don't like to wear shoes, so they wear a tuxedo with a pair of sneakers, whatever that means, and other things. But haven't had flyovers with bouquets, but we've had some, interesting props and interesting additions that are intended to make things unique, that are to make them identified, that are to make them stand out, okay? So that's what's going on with these catastrophes. Now, in addition to the whole notion that if you push the envelope a little bit, you are stepping into the danger zone, and that seems to be the inside theme here, which is I'm going to push it a little bit so that I'll get right up to the zone of danger, okay? And that will make it that'll make it pop a little more. That'll make it that much more interesting. In addition to that, anyone who's ever had a celebration, either as a person who is hosting it for, themselves or for others, or as a parent, I mean, a parent of a child getting married, or a bar mitzvah, or a birthday party, or something simple, part of the tension implicit in an event is you want the event to go just right. And the reason why you want it to go just right is because deep down it can go all wrong, right? Things can go awry, and especially given that there's tension going up, there's a sense of involvement, and especially in our time when people are coming from all sorts of different places. I can't tell you how many celebrations have been affected by a travel story, right? Someone who didn't get there on time because of something, or because there was a plane delay, or because there was a traffic accident, or because they were rushing and they got a flat tire. And these stories are legendary. So things happen, they always do, and sometimes they happen so badly they end up being catastrophic, especially when, in these instances which you just saw, they push the boundary. I mean, having a gender reveal party where you light a cannon and there's explosive material from the cannon just invites disaster. Okay, so now here, go on. Oops, I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that. Back to you. So examples. It's tragedy. The theme is tragedy. Romeo and Juliet is a tragic story. I mean, you pick any tragic tale, and you have, Romeo and Juliet, the star-crossed lovers. They're not. They come from rival families. They love each other so much. They want to be with each other, but they end up dying. And it's such a terrible story. Of course, West Side Story is built on that. And the Lincoln assassination, which basically is 10 days the anniversary from today, what made that tragic? Well, what made that tragic, of course, was an assassination, and a great moment, great president. It was following the end of the Civil War. It was supposed to be. It wasn't at a victory event. Of course, he was at a play, but the war was over, and things were heading into a new era. And the tragedy of it, in addition to the obvious, was that it just marred any sense of possibility of union. We could argue, I think, compellingly, that the effects of Lincoln's assassination lasted at least a generation, possibly more, in terms of the failures of the Reconstruction and the lingering effects of the way that the South integrated back with the North and all that. Courses and books are written on that subject. And of course, the Kennedy assassination. Again, it wasn't a celebratory moment, other than he was going through Dallas. It was not a ceremonial thing. It was just on a parade, basically, or on a motorcade, and that the motorcade was to result. But for the people in Dallas, it was celebratory, because here's the president of the United States coming to visit, and it, of course, ended in horrible tragedy, and obviously changed the course of history. All right. The Haftarah read on this Shabbat is a tragic moment. Again, this is perfectly in line with the theme. It's the first few verses. David again assembled all the picked men of Israel, 30,000 strong. Then David and all the troops were with him set out from Baalim of Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, to which the name was attached, the name the Lord of hosts enthroned on the cherubim. They loaded the ark of God onto a new cart and conveyed it from the house of Aminadab, which was on the hill. And Aminadab's sons, Uzzah and Ahio, guided the new cart. They conveyed it from Aminadab. You just feel something is bad is going to happen. They conveyed it from Aminadab on the hill. Uzzah walking alongside the ark of God, and Ahio walking in front of the ark. Meanwhile, David and all the house of Israel danced before the Lord to all kinds of cypress wood instruments, lyres, harps, timbrels, sistrums, cymbals. But when they came to the threshing floor of Nakon, Uzzah reached out for the ark of God and grasped it, for the oxen had stumbled. The Lord was incensed at Uzzah, and God struck him down on the spot for the indiscretion, and he died there beside the ark of God. David was distressed because the Lord had inflicted a breach upon Uzzah, and that place was named Peretz Uzzah, as it is still called today. David was afraid of the Lord that day. He said, "How can I let the ark of the Lord come to me?" So David would not bring the ark of the Lord to his place in the city of David. Instead, David diverted it to the house of Obed Edom the Gittite. The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed Edom the Gittite 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed Edom and his whole household. So I'm going to stop there. And so it's a perfect example, they're having a parade, basically, and it's a festive moment. They're taking the ark. What could be holier than the ark? Why was the ark there? So long story. The ark doesn't have a place yet. David is taking it from one place. He wants to bring it to the city of David, where it's going to be temporarily before there is a temple. Oh, David wants desperately to build a temple, but will not be able to build a temple. And so all of this is tied up with that. And so what happens? They build a new cart, right? It's like getting a new Cadillac. They want to put it in a new truck, a new thing, okay? And they're fresh oxen, okay? And what happens? The inevitable happens. The oxen stumble, the wagon stumbles, shakes, and Uzzah, out of the best of motives, wants to steady the ark, and he touches it, boom, he's gone, dead, okay? You don't touch the ark because you don't cross the boundary of the holy. It's the holiest item, okay?
Rabbi?
Now, 1 second. So what should he have done? The text really doesn't answer that question. It's such a profound question. Should the Kohanim have done, who knows? But Suzy, go ahead.
Yeah. So there, I see a very striking difference between what happened with Nadav and Avihu and this. They're out of control. I mean, there's an intimation later in the text that they may have been drunk, but
Sure.
but even if they weren't, they're taking their zeal into their own. It's like somebody running up onto the Har Habayit today when he's not supposed to be there. But this was somebody who's trying to prevent a tragedy.
That's right.
Very different.
You're absolutely right, and therefore, what you've kind of stepped into is there's a kind of the moral universe where it doesn't matter, what your intention is. Uzzah had a good intention. His intention was, the thing looks like it's going to fall. I'm going to, I mean, what would be the equivalent today? The equivalent today in the synagogue would be, a Torah falling from the ark.
Right.
Actually, some of us have been around when that has happened. It's a very unpleasant and very difficult emotional moment. If a Torah falls, what can you do to prevent a Torah from falling? Can you run all the way up to the ark? Can you, of course, it's not the same. Of course, you do everything you can to prevent it, but, if someone kind of runs up and screams and swears on the way up to stopping oh my God, like they have succeeded in stopping the Torah from falling. That it's how you deal with the sacred is really the issue. Okay. All right, let me go on, because I know we got the time here. I want to show you all my videos. All right, so there is a story within this story, okay? And I think the direction I wanted to go into, which I really don't have a lot of time to delve into, is that there seems to be something going on between Moses and Aaron. Moses, it says, and this is going back to when Moses is at the burning bush. You recall that Moses tells God, pick someone else. I don't want to do this. Why? And so these verses are really at the end of that whole scene. The Lord became angry with Moses, and he said, "There is your brother Aaron the Levite. He, I know, speaks readily. Even now he is setting out to meet you, and he will be happy to see you. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth. I will be with you and with him as you speak, and tell both of you what to do. And he shall speak for you and the people. Thus he shall serve you as your spokesman with you playing the role of God to him, and take with you this rod, etc. So all this reluctance was because Moses was unwilling to assume any dignity that would make him superior to his brother Aaron, who was older than he, and it was also a prophet. So there is some rivalry between the two, Moses and Aaron. Moses is younger than Aaron, and Moses doesn't want to be greater than Aaron, and Moses gets God angry, and the punishment, it seems, for Moses getting God angry is that Moses, he was supposed to be a priest, but he ended up not being a priest. And there's a problem when you are thinking that you should be a priest, right? I have this all the time, when there are people that think they know how to do it better than you do, okay, right? And here's the Moses supposed to, maybe was Moses supposed to be a priest? Here the Talmud deals in this issue for a second. The Gemara comments, the question of whether Moses was a high priest is subject to a dispute among the Tanaim. When Moses was at the burning bush and expressed hesitation to deliver God's message to Pharaoh, the verse states, and the anger of the Lord burned against Moses. And he said, is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he comes to forth to meet you, and when he sees you, you'll be glad. Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha says, for every burning arrow that is stated in the Torah, its effect is also stated. The Torah records an action or pronouncement as a consequence of that anger. But in this case, no effect of the anger is stated. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai said, even in this case, the anger's effect is stated. As it is stated there, is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. But isn't Aaron a priest? Why is he referred to as a Levite? This is what God is saying to Moses. I initially said that you would be the priest and he would be the Levite. Now he will be the priest and you will be the Levite. The rabbis say Moses became a priest for the 7 days of inauguration alone, and after that, his priesthood expired. And some say the priesthood expired only for the descendants of Moses, but Moses remained a priest. I'm not going to go into that further. There's a problem. The problem is, I'm going to stop here for a second. The problem is that Moses wants to be close to God. And Moses is the leader, but Moses is not the priest. And there is a delight in doing all the priestly things, okay? There's Sheldon Bonnie. Sheldon is in the background there. Sheldon is a Kohen, okay? He gets the duchen, okay? And anybody other Kohanim here? No, okay? So he gets the duchen, Steve Parker, and I am just a measly Israelite, okay? And nothing I will be able to do ever will enable me to duchen. Steve, you're about to, right? I will never be. I'm not allowed. End of story. Okay, and here is Moses, who only wants to be the duchener. He only wants. He loves that. At least the rabbis are projecting on him the zeal of devotion that he wants to serve God, and God eliminates that role from him, except in these 7 days. And if you read back, and we don't have time to read back into the story, Moses is telling everybody what to do. Moses tells Aaron, take this, sacrifice this, this is the way you do it, this is the way you do it, this, blah, 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 here, blah, 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 blah. And Aaron does everything that he is supposed to do. And Moses, in designating Aaron, also has to take leave of that role. And you get the sense, especially when things go awry, that Moses is really upset because Moses wants everything to go perfectly. And it's not in his control. And he gets furious for that reason. Okay? And here we'll go back to this. So this is Aviva Zornberg in her biography of Moses, a lovely paragraph which brought me to this whole issue. With all the complementary harmony of the brothers, that is Aaron and Moses, each rejoicing for the other, a strain persists in Moses' experience. When later Aaron is in fact appointed high priest in the tabernacle, Moses' reaction is deeply ambivalent. And that appointment is in 28. You shall bring forward your brother Aaron with his sons, and among them the Israelites, to serve me as priests. Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, Elazar, and Tamar, the sons of Aaron. Notice in that sentence, "Va'ata hakrev elecha et Aron achicha." The Bible is not, it's not subtle here. It's your brother. Bring your brother close and his sons, which include Nadav, Avihu. These are where they're named. And Moses' reaction is deeply ambivalent. I don't know how she derives that, but we'll go on. Many midrashic sources tell of his disappointment at the loss of the priestly role. Since he acts as high priest during the 7 days of inauguration, he slips so totally into his role that he is shocked when God makes it clear that he is merely to dress Aaron in his priestly vestments. It is Aaron who will wear those vestments, which in themselves represent expressiveness. Okay? And again, the golden calf episode shows the moment of kind of strife or conflict between the two brothers. I'm not going to go into it, except for the fact that Moses gets so angry at him, and Moses said, "What did they do to you?" Aaron said, "Let my Lord not be enraged." Look at how he speaks to his brother. Verse 22. Al yichar af Adoni. It's my brother, Adoni, right? My Lord. Let not my Lord be. You know that this people is bent on evil. They said, "We do not know what happened to him." So I said, "Take your gold, give it to me." And look, it's the lamest scene in the whole Bible, where Aaron says, "I took their gold. Look, out came a calf." I mean, yeah, it happened. Well, what am I supposed to do, right? Moses saw the people out of control, and Moses goes, he loses it, okay? Moses stood up and said, "Who's the man?" There's a civil war. So, of course, there's a ritual reason for the catastrophe. This is Richard Friedman. It is not clear just what Nadav and Avihu's offense is. The text said they bring the fire that is zara, that God had not commanded them. Some have taken this to mean foreign fire, and therefore have related Nadav's and Avihu's act to foreign worship, another god. The term zara, however, never has the meaning of foreign in any other occurrence in the Torah's law or narrative. It rather denotes a person or thing that is outside a particular group. In any context, dealing with a priest, for example, refers to a layperson. In the only other context referring to incense burning, unfitting incense is listed along with sacrifices and libations as things that would not be brought on the special incense altar located inside the meeting. That is, there is no suggestion that if it means anything foreign, but simply something that is outside the realm of what is permitted, or, as our text says explicitly, that God had not commanded. Nadav and Avihu might thus be thought of having had positive intentions to bring an incense offering to God, but as unfortunately having acted incorrectly. Or, alternatively, we might imagine a variety of less commendable motives in them, as I have been hinting at. The point is that the text does not deal with their motives because that's not the issue. In the realm of the ritual, and here this is really the punchline, they have failed to observe a boundary, and so their fate is settled. This is one of the several biblical stories that indicate that on the highest levels of the ritual realm, intention does not matter. In the ethical realm, it does. The killing of a man, for example, may be found to be murder or to be manslaughter, depending in part on the intention of the person who killed him. In the ritual category, however, there are cases in which innocent motives still do not make one innocent. Only a priest, for example, can enter the tent of meeting. If a layperson enters, that person must die. And the law does not provide for taking the motives for the trespass into account. In the famous case of the ark, Uzzah touches the ark to steady it because it is rocking on the backs of oxen. His motive is good, but he dies because, like Nadav and Avihu, he's violated the boundary of the holy. So what we have here is this notion that you violate the boundary of the holy. It's over. There's no ethics, no reason other than you don't belong there. What did they do then? So I think I'm placing myself in the camp that they took a coal from a place that wasn't in the designated holy area, okay? And they were pushing the limits of there of danger. They were trying to do something that we can attribute a motivation of zeal, or I don't even, I know all the texts I'm reading are so holy and so pious and so they're so filled with the sense of awe and zeal and reverence. For me to say they wanted to do a little bit of levity at this moment, they wanted a little bit of lightness, so they went for the extra pyrotechnics. They went for the extra, let's get a little fizz here, okay? Or let's get something different. After all, Moses didn't say bring incense, and let's it's a celebration. Celebrate good times. Come on, let's go and celebrate. And what are we going to do to celebrate? We're going to be inventive and innovative. And you know what? He didn't say incense. So let's throw in some incense here. Let's get everybody fired up. And they go out and they get a coal and they bring it in to make an additional, and they are way out of bounds. And that their lives are on the line here. And that's why they get incinerated. They step into the danger zone, and that costs them their lives. Aaron responds as anyone would in this incredibly tragic moment, which is what the hell has just happened. And Moses is feeling that he wants to make sure everything is still going on, but we've had a catastrophe, and the death of the two sons is now defiling the present. They're defiling the sacred area, which is why, if you read the story, he has to get the bodies moved out. And Aaron my two sons have just been killed. It's just an incredible moment, okay? There's no way to understand it. Marlene, go ahead.
We don't know whether their zeal was like Korach and they wanted to take over, or whether they were just so enthusiastic that they wanted to also participate.
This is where the Torah becomes joyful, because I don't have the answer. Nobody has the I'm inclined to argue a point here. I want to argue a point because I see this as an element in life. The zip lining bride and groom. Okay, so I'm the rabbi. Okay, if a couple says to me, Rabbi, we'd like to have a different kind of wedding. We like to zip line into the chuppah. Okay, so part of me would go, are you nuts? Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? Crazy? And then part of me says, I've learned already, don't mess with the bride, don't mess with the groom when they're wedding. They have a certain idea, and when you mess with them, they get all offended, okay? You could say to them, there are all sorts of things that can go wrong, but you're never going to win a logical argument. This is all about irrational. People want to be irrational. People want to push boundaries. It's exactly the lesson from childhood. You say, don't go. It's the Garden of Eden message. Don't go here, but they go here. There's a compelling line of commentary that says this is the priestly equivalent to the golden calf episode. The golden calf is the pushing of the boundary. God just said, thou shalt not have any other, don't make anything. Oh yeah, well, we'll see. Okay, that, and that's exactly what's happening. We're going to push it here with excitement, with zeal, with a little prankery, with a little bit of, but it's also irrational. They're stepping over the holy boundary, which is why I brought this final video to conclude with, okay? Which is, what do you do? Who's the holiest person on the ice? The goalie.
Feeds it on the far side of the bank. Couture shoots. Block save Riddick. He's knocked over by Kane.
We're not seeing it.
We're not
What
seeing it,
happens when
Rabbi.
you touch the goalie? I'm sorry, you can't see it?
No.
No, we just had it set
All
YouTube.
right, just a second. Sorry, hang on. I gotta stop this. All right, I'll get it back to here.
Rabbi didn't play goalie. He was a forward.
Share the screen. I'm sorry. No, here we go. We'll do this. Let's try this again. You might get an ad here, so just a second. I'm sharing this because I have this idea that the goalie is the holiest person in on the rink.
Myers, Coverdale, Manning, his shot. Here's a breakaway now, and the puck gets away from Lucic.
Boom.
Miller gets hammered by Lucic, and Lucic is getting a penalty.
Okay, so the reason why I'm showing that is, you touch the goalie, they will kill you, okay? They will send the whole team. Rules, schmules. The rule is you lay a finger on the goalie, we will empty out the bench and destroy you, okay? And you saw in that play, the goalie was way out of his crease. He didn't deserve to be hit, but it was going to happen. But didn't matter. Got smashed. So there are lots of things like that, which are part of the whole genre of this. Okay. What I want to conclude with, I'm just sorry, a second. I'll tee up this set again. So I'm going to go back to this set of questions here.
Can I just say something?
Go ahead, Ilana.
Esh Zara is similar to Avodah Zara.
Yes.
Something that is not allowed to be done. To give us a clue, maybe what was done wrong, what did they do wrong, that later on in the following chapter or chapters, there are Dinei Nazir, the laws about a priest that should not drink while they do a holy work. So one of the reasons can be that they were drinking.
So all of that is true in the sense that the rabbis make that connection and they draw that connection. And I'm inclined also, that's a classic midrashic view of the passage. But as usual, the rabbis are actually digging for something more. And I think Aviva Zornberg, they're heading for a different story here. And the story is the story between the brothers. And I'm going to move through these questions so quickly so that we get my punchline. Can we speculate the motives behind Nadav and Avihu? Yeah, we tried to say, and I'm trying to kind of connect that to pushing the boundary. Were they like gender reveal parties, trying to go on several? Maybe. Were they pushing the boundary? I'm in that camp right now. Can we speculate why Moses gets angry? Here, I'm going to offer this speculation. Moses gets angry because A, he's supposed to be a priest. B, he's supposed to be a priest who knows better. C, he is responsible. He is the leader. D, he can't believe that Aaron would let his sons do this. D, E, Moses has his own sons and they have no hereditary role in the leadership of Israel, period, full stop. You never hear of the sons of Moses at all. Moses is, I guess, intentionally not a dynastic leader, but Aaron is. Aaron is a dynastic leader in the sense that every single Kohen, from Stephen Parker to Sheldon Freinreich, can trace their lineage back to Aaron. Okay, you have the same genetic material. So there's a deeper story here, which is, I can't believe you, screwed up this, okay, on such a day like today. I can't believe you let your two idiot sons go out of the precincts, get foreign fire, get a coal, take incense. I did not say take incense. You let them. And you know what? Let's just finish the job. You have to stay here because your role as the priest supersedes your private obligation for bereavement, which is something that none of us can understand. Okay? The human element here is completely, off the charts. We It's like saying, you know, you're the sovereign, you're the monarch, and therefore you are not entitled to personal grief. Queen Elizabeth, by the way, understands this, okay? You know, if you watch The Crown or any of the movies on her, she has so deeply internalized her role, she does not allow herself the indulgence of emotions in public, okay? Does
Rabbi,
Aaron?
but who says he allowed them? I mean, you know, they're adults, they're independent people. You know, they're their own age.
Aaron is in charge of it's Aaron's sanctuary. He is the high priest. The buck stops with him, period. Okay? So he's responsible. Does Aaron's silence convey his disconnect with Moses, his acquiescence to the severity of the events? He finds it unfathomable Moses would deal with this. That's a time of personal loss. And this is where you know, the silence of Aaron is also the silence of the reader. It's our silence. I think that it's that the story is tragic in that it doesn't resolve in any way with clarity. I don't think there's any satisfying way around this story. It's a deeply unsatisfying story. It's a deeply tragic story. It I think discloses some pettiness, but then again, it also discloses a focus on the most important values to Moses. They conflict, I think, abruptly with our own hierarchy of values. I don't think there is a single person who would say, under the same circumstances today, well, the show must go on. The show, it's exactly what he's saying. Well, you know, sorry that you had this catastrophe here. You know, they deserved it. It's basically Moses said, you know, what do you think is going to happen? You come into the holy area, you know, you broke the rules. What do you think is going to happen? And the show must go on. Well, you know, that doesn't happen today. You know, even when the show, even when the show has to be suspended, you know, you suspend the show for everything. Skip, go ahead.
No, I think it shows reflects the naivete of Aaron, not understanding as the quote unquote leader, the effect that the multitude, the Israelites that were exposed to this, what effect that would have on them.
Yes.
And I seem to think that that's where Moses' anger came from. It's not that Aaron allowed it to happen, but he did not realize the effect it would have on the Israelites.
I think there's something there. Look, this is a public moment. This is a public moment where everybody's got to be together. You know, sometimes I feel naive about the Torah myself. You know, I joke with my friends about this. I say, you know, wouldn't it have been better if we wrote it? You know, wouldn't it? Why do they have to do this? Why do they have to complain? You know, couldn't we do this without the mess? You know, but the mess, you know, what makes it so satisfying also is that the mess conforms to life, because so many of us have experienced things not in that order of magnitude with that level of tragedy, although certainly, you know, tragic things have happened to all of us. But we've all experienced, you know, where things go awry, where things that you lay all the best laid plans, right? And you know, there's an element of the tragic in life that we all resonate with. It's just not supposed to be this way. And the worst part of that is that, you know, there are things that of course are tragic because we know we can't prevent them. And then there are things that are tragic because they don't mean something. They happen for frivolous reasons. Like here, you know, the guy who, you know, lights a cannon at the gender reveal party. I mean, how stupid can you be? You know, when tragedy happens for stupid kinds of reasons, that's awful. You know, when things happen tragically, you know, we end up learning how to accept it because it's life. and of course this is somewhere in between, because this is stepping over into the third rail that gets zapped, and this is also, the tragic dimension of life. I mean, I don't want to end on tragedy, but on with something a little more positive, which is to say that the reason why I think we can experience this as deeply as we can is because, look, this is just another aspect of the greatness of the Torah, which is it reflects a certain reality of the human experience. When we said at the beginning of the book of Leviticus that Leviticus represents the whole emotional palette, it's true. And part of the emotional palette includes, the darker sides of life's existence, which I know that, we've all been touched by on some level. We live our lives deeply, and the Torah allows us to reflect on that. Bob, you wanted to say something?
Just some scattered thoughts. I'm wondering to what degree a confusion between the meaning of an animal offering and an incense offering may also be part of this. And the reason I say that, I think in Hasidus, they talk about the animal offering, sort of the animal soul, and the incineration that I read about with the two sons was not of the body per se, but the nostril, the flame coming and getting their soul out of them. And so part of what I'm struggling with is this overly misplaced act, the incense offering appropriately with the animal offering in the right place.
So
and the other random thought, and I just wonder if you'd comment on the incense offering and Keteret itself. And the last comment is, you talked about Mary Douglas last week, and she's written many books on purity and danger, and this whole notion you're talking about
is the danger notion. You froze up a little
boundary
bit.
Crossing is very willing.
Okay, so on that, I don't have the Mary Douglas at my fingertips, but this is part of religious life. Part of religious life is the boundary notion of holiness and danger, and this is clear in this instance, and in that profane instance in the hockey arena, that it's clearly what's going on a deep anthropological level. You touch the goal, you die, basically. And it's true in other realms of our experience. In the sanctuary as well, we have a holy area that we do relate to with a certain deep anthropology. As far as the incense is concerned, I haven't really done a lot of research or speculation on this. But we have to. I don't want to ascribe too much mysticism to them. On the other hand, the whole idea of incense and why incense is important it seems to be basic, which is incense conveys the sense of the ethereal, and incense. I'll give you one example of it, which is in terms of space, right? You live in a house. You live in an enclosed space, and your house has air in it, but you can't see the air. And every house has a certain type. You walk into any of your houses on a Friday afternoon, and you will identify Shabbos. I guarantee it. Okay, it's one of the joys of living a Jewish life is that you can walk to a Shabbos household on a Friday afternoon and know Shabbos is happening because you smell chicken soup or whatever. Okay, incense does that. Incense gives the character to a space, and the incense blend of the temple was supposed to give the divine sacred character to the space. Only that space had that scent. And it was a very holy scent in the same sense that the clothing blends was only a blend of linen and wool that you can only find in the sanctuary. So it was the royal blend. It was the royal incense. It was the holy incense by appointment to the Kohen Gadol. That's what, if you see on some labels of Scotch, right? This is the blend that is by appointment only to the whatever. And because you want to give a scent stamp, a voice print, a DNA identity to the sacred area that it has alone and is not replaceable. And I could go into many directions here. Like
It's totally.
the same way that those of us who long for the cooking of our mothers and grandmothers, as much as we try to do it, we will never get that same geschmack. You can't do it. You can't get the same taste, the same smell. It's unique to that place. That's where I would go with that.
So I have to leave.
All right. See you all again. It's so great to be back. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.